Hi, Paul here from Volaticus. Today, the second part of our flight into high altitude ski resorts. Today, we're going to be departing Telluride Regional using the Challenger 300 and flying into Aspen. So, Telluride Regional and Aspen are both XP stock. Challenger 300 is a premium aircraft by D-Den, and en route, scenery will be Ortho 4 XP, which is available from explain.org. For flight planning, we shall be using SimBrief, which is free of charge. And for charts and FMS data, we're going to be using Navigraph charts. Let's have a look at the route. So Telluride to Aspen, 167 nautical miles. Quite a short route, very simple route as well, just from the ETL VOR direct to the DBL VOR and then into the approach. So Telluride sits 9,070 feet above sea level, shrouded by mountains, and there's no published standard instrument departure from Telluride, so we need to think about how we're going to depart there, although actually the weather is pretty good today. So Aspen sits 7,800 feet above sea level, so it's still high altitude. One of the things about Aspen is the approach, with lots of mountains around, plus the missed approach procedure. Let's have a look at the departure from Telluride now. So we're going to be departing runway 27. We are sitting at 9,070 feet and the runway is 7,111 feet long, which is not so long at that altitude. So we're going to need to check the performance of the aircraft, make sure that's okay. We are going to be following there's no SID, so we're going to be following the approach, and we're just basically going to be backtracking the approach. So out of the runway towards ETL, VOR, and then en route. And for the arrival into Aspen, we're going to follow the RNAV Foxtrot approach, which basically involves starting at the DBL VOR, flying then a loop, and then following the approach to the runway, and the runway is offset. Aspen itself 7,838 foot elevation, runway 8,000 foot in length. One of the things to note about Aspen approach is the 6.49 degree approach angle, plus the missed approach altitude 10,200 feet, which is 2363 feet AGL. Okay, let's get into the cockpit and we'll do the pre-flight checks and we'll get out of here as soon as possible. Okay, so standby instruments. And batteries. External power is already connected. Left and right bleed switches are off. Nav lights on. Tail lights not required. Put the no smoking signs on as well. Left and right fuel pump are on auto. And APU switch to start. Spooling up now. And we can put the APU bleed on, cross bleed open, and air source to normal. Okay, fuel quantity. We need to get some fuel for our route, so let's have a quick look at the plan on SimBrief. And it looks like the block fuel 3,651 pounds. We just got out just a bit under 2,000, so we need to get some fuel. Let's do that now. That's near enough. 3,692 will do us. Other thing is need to just simulate the weight as well. So let's have a look at the weight page on the plan. And it's giving the payload weight 2.1 tons. And actually I've got the wrong one there. Let's just change that now. 2.1 tons, there we go. And 3650, I think, on fuel. 3651. That'll do. 3649. Okay, so we've got the payload and the fuel is set. Apply those changes. That's fine. And we've got balance as well. Fuel equally in both tanks. So standby instruments check. Clock, we can reset the stopwatch. Change the time to UTC. And the next thing would be the FMS. So let's bring that up. What we'll do here is just bring the route in from SimBrief. I've already created a SimBrief plan. So we're looking with KTEX KASE, which is that one there. And just have a quick peek. It's a very simple route. It's 2 VORs, so a straight line between the two. And then into Aspen. Let's have a look at the departure and arrival. Well, there's no instrument departure from Telluride. So what we are going to do is we won't be able to put anything to the FMS, but we do need to have some assurance that we are departing clear of mountains. So what I will attempt to do is to fly the reverse approach. We are meant to also be departing from runway 9 from Telluride. And we'll do that. We'll do a departure from there. And we'll just basically fly the missed approach. And that should give us assurance of clearance from mountains, etc. And we'll fly into the ETL VOR from there. Arrival into Aspen. Let's have a look. So we've got a number of different approaches to choose from here. I think we'll go for Foxtrot. I'm just going to check what we have on the plan here. Yeah, so we've got the RNAV Foxtrot here, which starts from the DBL VOR, which we're routing to, and then is a direct line to final approach. It's a slightly offset final approach. And missed approach will be to Linz and then the Gleno hold. So that is RNAV Foxtrot via DBL. Cruise altitude, it's 310, so I'll put that in there. And just have a quick look at the legs. So ETL DBL is in our plan. And then we've got procedural holds and Hep B. And we can see Hep B on the chart there. So from DBL, Hep B. But we can, let's just bridge those for the moment, actually. I'd like to try to eliminate all the gaps where possible. Okay. So that's the arrival sorted out. The departure, as I say, will follow the missed approach procedure as if we are attempting to land on the westerly runway, the easterly runway even. Set up the departure ATIS as well. So just bring up the NavRad page, and we have 118.325, which is the ATIS, or AWOS, for KTEX. We'll listen to that in a moment. And then the ATIS for Aspen is 120.4, and that's already configured on the recall for channel 2. Have a quick listen to the ATIS for Telluride.
Telluride RGNL weather. Wind light and variable. Visibility more than 10. Sky clear. Temperature 9. Dew point 0. Altimeter 3045.
Okay, 3045, and the wind is light and variable, so we would be sensible to take off in the correct direction, really. So we're going to go out to the west, as it shouldn't make a lot of difference to us at this point. I did have a quick look on the weather on the plan, Let's just go down to that. Surface actuals. So KTEX, it said it was marginally easterly at 4 knots. And the most important one here will actually be our arrival into Aspen. It's saying it's southerly at 6, so it's quite light. The landing runway will be 15 today. In fact, I think 15 is the only authorised one for IFR approaches anyway. But we have to be careful because later on that is going to be becoming a northerly wind, 10 to 24 knots, and that's going to be quite interesting. In fact, that would push us beyond our limits. So we need to get going fairly soon. Okay, just continue with the check. So we've got our FMS planned as far as we can. The window shield heats can go on now. And then the pressurization panel. So for Aspen, let's have a quick look at the elevation. So it is 7,680, so we'll stick that in now. So I'll just set this up, summary page, and we can set this up now here. So 7,680. That's going to be near enough 7,700. So they're both high altitude airfields, which makes it a bit interesting. Okay, emergency lights to arm, and then the stabilator trim set for takeoff. Okay, that'll do. Altimeter set, and 9,080 corresponds with our altitude at Telluride, approximately. Avionics will set the nav source to be FMS, that's already set. Nav set will be set up to take off. SID loaded. Okay, as I say, what I've got here is the approach into Telluride runway 9, the RNAV Zulu approach. We will fly the reverse of that. We're going westerlies now, so we'll attempt to route to the ETL VOR shortly after departure. Just follow that in reverse. That should give us some assurance. If we were needing to fly easterlies, we would just do the missed approach procedure. So as soon as it's safe to do so, a right turn and then direct to ETL. But we're going to fly westerlies on this occasion. Next thing is the V speeds. Let's refer to the manual. So it becomes quite important really when we're actually flying at Telluride. Here's the 9,000 foot chart. This is bleeds off flaps 10 dry runway, which is what we have today. Weight's about 30 tons. So we've got V1 116, V2, VR rather 118, and V2 123. So we can put those into figures into the system now. So it's 116, 118, 123. So 116 is the minimum anyway. 120, 118 is the VR. Give me 1 minute. That's better. And 123, I think I said. And that's also bottomed out now at 126 for V2. It does have some minimums in here. When you look at the chart, there's a grey area. I don't see that here though, but I think for the V1 speed, we are on the minimum. It says down here minimum. V1 and VR are 116. So if the charts report any lower than that, then the aircraft will just set that. The other thing that's important here is the takeoff runway required here, which today under the conditions is 5680. And we have about 7,000 feet, so we're okay. But there could be occasions where that isn't quite enough, particularly if we're getting a bit heavier there. See if it's a hot day, we're heavier, we'll be on the limits of that for takeoff. We also need to check for Aspen, of course. So let's go down and have a look at the data for landing. So this is a simpler chart. Runway near enough 8,000 feet. We'll assume 30 tons landing. So our VREF 117 and V go around 123. We can put those datas in there now. So 117 is already set and 123 is already set, so we can just leave that alone. The other thing is the runway required, dry 4760, and we have about 7,000, so we're good in that respect as well. So our V speeds have been set. Now I'll just cycle around to bring up the departure V speeds, and that will then, you can see that in the annunciator here. What else do we need? Well, just confirm with 10-degree flap, standard takeoff configuration. The altitude set, surface dry. I'm going to say bleeds off and anti-ice is not required today for departure, so those charts are valid. Next thing is the KASE messages, and I don't see anything untoward here. Coming altitude is one that you wouldn't normally see, but we are set at 9,000 feet, and that's why that is appearing as a warning. As if you've watched the inbound flight to Telluride, that was flagging up as soon as we landed. Okay, ready to close the doors now, so let's do that. Quiet. Okay, so first things first, just make sure the brake is on. There it is. And just check the thrust levers as well. I was flying a single engine aircraft last time, so one of the levers wasn't quite in the right position for a twin. That's okay. And we will, just going to have a quick check through to make sure I've gone through everything. I think so. This is my abbreviated checklist. I will put a link into the notes. And the engine run switches come on now. We will put the strobe on. And we're going to be starting with the APU running. In fact, I have not, I don't have any other procedure for this. I always start with the APU running. Seems to be fine, but there's other ways you can start with external air source in the manual, but I think this is the normal way of starting the engine. So we are ready to go. Have a quick look around. Okay, got a good start on both engines. And the other thing that's happening at the moment is because we are on external power here, and actually when I started the APU, should have switched over to APU power. I'm just going to do that now, and that will automatically put the APU on as the power source. But because the engine's now running, our left and right generators are also working from the engines, and that's evidenced in the electrics page here. You can see green line between the engines and the power system. So a bit of an oversight on my part. Hydraulics also we can have a check. And you can see the hydraulics are online here. Do need to switch those on now. We've started up. And normally we'd do that when we make sure that the crew, ground crew, are clear of the aircraft area, particularly the movable surfaces. And I'd like to get into the first officer's seat for this, because these are obscured from the captain's side. And they're all showing green on the hydraulics page. So the next thing will be anti-ice, which we can run a quick check. So we'll bring up the anti-ice page. And that would take time to go green, I think, in the real aircraft. But we can leave that running for the moment, and we'll switch that off in a moment. We can also do the engine anti-ice check as well. Flaps set for takeoff, so it's going to be 10 degrees today. And the flight controls page. We can just check. We've got normal control here. It's particularly important because I just had a problem with the joystick a bit earlier. It just came out from the USB socket slightly, but the joystick wasn't working, so it's quite important even on a computer setup to make sure that's working correctly. And do the spoiler check as well. And yaw damper is on. ECAS messages, cabin altitude, probe heats off, wing engine anti-ice is on, parking brake set, cross bleed open, nose wheel steering was off, and that's all quite normal. We can actually turn the cross bleed off at this point. And we can also go to the anti-ice page and switch all of that off now. I think it just takes time to warm up on the real aircraft. Okay, aircraft lighting. We're about to start taxiing, so we can put the seatbelt sign on now. And also the taxi light can go on as well. And nose wheel steering can go on at this point, and we are ready to taxi. So as I say, we're going to take off to the west. And that will involve just taxiing down here. And I'll just bring up the plan here in SimBrief. Sorry, I'll bring up the plan here in Navigraph charts, and you can see Telluride's a very simple layout. See, we're just based at the sort of main operation. It's just one taxiway really. Let's go. Okay, first things first. We'll just power up a little bit, start moving, and do our initial brake check, both sides. Now you do need a lot more power because of the altitude here. You see we're over 9,000 feet. Now the other thing you may notice is my initial altitude I've not set yet. And normally 5,000 for most sort of sea level-ish altitude airfields is absolutely more than adequate. But here we're going to set that 15,000 feet. I'll do that in a moment. Let's just do the reverse thrust check. Reverse white, reverse green, reverse white, and reverse stowed. It's not a very long taxi here, so we've got to be a little bit intent. The other thing I haven't set yet is the squawk code. Let's put that in now. So 4215, just made that up. And that can go into the flight management computer. And we'll put that to on. Engine instruments are green. Just to review, it's a dry runway, 10 degree flaps standard, no anti-ice. Takeoff data is set, so 116 is our V1 118 VR. Takeoff and departure briefing, well, we have the chart up there in Navigraph charts, so as I say, we're just more or less runway heading, then direct to ETL. So I'm just going to set the altitude now to 15,000. There you go. Radar terrain as well. Let's put terrain actually under the circumstances will be better today. And we'll go straight into the lineup checks. So cross bleed closed. Bleeds as required. Well, they're going to be off for departure today. Doesn't normally matter so much, but I think from this runway it does. We'll put the probes on now. Put the strobes on full. Landing lights can come on as well, and the nose will light as well. CAS messages just cabin altitude, and that's fine. But you can see the cabin altitude has already dropped a little bit, and that will continue dropping as we depart. Just a quick check to the left and the right. And just check our trim. Our elevator trim is set for departure, which is 7.2. 10 degrees is set. Everything's looking good. All the greens. Let's go. Take off power. Very slight tailwind according to this, that's fine. Airspeed is alive. 80 knots. V1, rotate. Gear up. I'm going to set the attitude a bit higher than I would normally because of the terrain. I'll just bring the power back to climb power, and also we can switch into FMS mode now, and that should route us to ETL. I'm just going to bring up the flight management computer, and that should confirm. Just bring the nose down a little bit. We'll start building some speed up now. After takeoff checks, landing gear is up. Flaps are about to come up. We're going to wait until we get to 170. We can keep the landing lights on until 18,000, but the nose wheel light can come off. Bleeds can come on at this point, and we can also switch the APU off. And there's our warning, 1,000 to go. I'll just bring the nose down a little bit more and we can accelerate. Of course, we are very high, relatively speaking, so it's going to take a while for our speed to build up. And there it is, flaps can come up. And 12 miles to ETL. And of course we're above 10,000, we have no speed restriction, but we'll probably just keep it under at 250 or lower until we pass ETL, because we have a bit of a turn. Okay, let's say we're clear to 250 flight level. And because we've been cleared to a level above 18,000, we'll now switch to standard barometer. So it's 2992 there. And I said flight level 25. A very, very short flight, this one today. About to start our turn to the right. And we'll clear ourselves up to 310, which is our cruise. I'll just set the vertical speed climb to 2,000 feet a minute, just to allow the speed to build up a little bit. We've got 31 miles to the top of descent, so we have to keep an eye on that. Going to switch over to Aspen's ATIS, and I doubt we'll get anything here, but just have it ready for when we're a bit closer. Going to bring the vertical climb down to 1,000 feet a minute just to get us a bit, just that extra few knots, get us up to near 0.8 Mach, and then we can switch to flight level change mode. $19 miles to go. Just reeling the speed back a little bit because as we get nearer flight level 300, we need to really control the attitude of the aircraft to continue getting some climb. It tends to just sort of wane off, but we're nearly there, just 1,000 to go now. Top descent 11 nautical miles. So we're going to be almost at the top of descent and then straight into the top of the climb, straight into descent. And there it is, flight level 310. What I'll do also is get the RNAV approach overlaid onto the Navigraph chart screen, as you can see there. So 5 miles to the top of descent. Going to keep a sharp eye on that. 4 nautical miles now. One of the things you have to watch out for in Aspen is it's a 6-degree descent profile. It's very, very steep. It's double. It's over double actually. It's 6.6 I think degrees, which is going to fit you real feel that in the aircraft. So just about at the top of descent now. So switch to VNAV mode and then flight level change. For some reason that's not picking up, so put that in manually. Oh, that's not working. Anyway, we'll set the altitude, which is 13,700. So we've got to be above that, so set 14,000 then. And we'll switch to vertical speed mode, just give us a decent descent rate. We'll put in 2200, should be a good starting point. So one thing about the approach here, as we get near to DBL, which is our initial point on the approach, what it will do is anticipate that our next point is Hep, and it will turn us earlier. The problem with that is that we don't have any time to really stabilise. So what I'm going to do is we'll fly as if we're entering the hold, and then we'll fly back to DBL and start the approach from there. The other factor is that the descent into Aspen, as I say, is double the normal descent rate. We need to lose altitude, we need to lose speed, and it's a high altitude airfield. We need to start at a much slower speed to start that descent. So I'm going to throw in the gear very, very early on and start that much slower than I normally would. Otherwise, we'll end up just never being able to get rid of the speed. Because bear in mind, this aircraft is designed to fly as fast as possible and not to lose speed. So we have to throw in spoilers, we have to throw in gear. You'll see what I mean on the approach. It is quite a challenging approach from this end. So normally the flight management computer would be computing this descent rate. I don't know why that wasn't working today. As I say, this is very, very buggy. It's very frustrating to use the sort of built-in FMS. As far as I can see, I've done everything you're meant to. Switch into VNAV mode, put it into flight level change. It should pick up on the first sort of major descent point on your approach. Let's try the ATIS for Aspen now.
Aspen, Pitkin County Field Information Sierra 000 Zulu weather. Wind light and variable. Visibility more than 10. Sky clear. Temperature 10. Dew point 2. Altimeter 3029. Arriving runway 15. Departing runway 15. Advise on initial contact you have Sierra.
Okay, so information Sierra 3029 is set now, and we can put that in because we've been cleared to a level below the flight level transition altitude.
Aspen, Pitkin County Field Information Echo 000.
So we can just run through the descent checks now. So descent ATIS, destination ATIS rather, we have received. Pressurization will set for the landing altitude already. Just check 700 is already set on there. Wing anti-ice and engine anti-ice is not required. Transition level is 18,000, flight level 180. Altimeters are already set for local altimeter. Left and right landing light, we'll switch that on as we descend through flight level 180. We'll leave everything can be left as is for the moment. So when we get to DBL, I'm going to use the heading hold, and we'll fly a sort of northerly heading from there. So it's going to be about probably about 350. And I can start setting that up now. So as soon as we get near it, we can switch over to heading hold, and then we can go back to the approach. And that will also give us time to get the speed under control so that we can start really slowing up. So the other thing to note on this approach is the missed approach altitude, which is 10,200 feet of sea level, which is 2,363 above the ground. So the missed approach opportunity comes very, very quickly. We have a sort of commit to land situation below that. It's not to say we can't fly a missed approach, but in theory, if you haven't got our visual clues at that point, then we'd have to commit to a missed approach. That involves a right turn to the Linz intersection and then Gleno into the hold there. But it's a pretty nice day, as you can see, so I think that's not going to be too likely today. Okay, we're just approaching flight level 180, so we can stick the landing lights are on already. I did leave the landing lights, and the seatbelt signs are still on, but at that point we would be switching those on. Other things, fuel quantity and balance. Well, quantity is good, balance is good. Approach aids, tune and ident. Well, we're going to fly the RNAV approach, so there's no need to ident that. But we have reviewed the procedure. It's basically a step down approach between the Heb and Alex, and then Mafmu, which is our final point, missed approach point. So say it's an offset approach as well, which means that we will not see the runway directly in line with our approach. It's only about 10 degrees off, but may be a bit disconcerting if you're expecting to see a straight line of approach lights, particularly at night. So 15 miles to go. I just did a quick calculation really to give us an estimate here, so that's going to work out pretty well. Probably arrive just a little before we arrive at DBL, and then we'll go into heading hold mode as soon as we get there. And you'll see actually that 13,700 minimum is a really serious altitude. And you can see already we're getting quite near to the peaks. That's part of the reason I put the terrain setting on the radar. The other thing is we can get the landing speeds in as well. So we've got VREF 117 is what we're going to be looking for, 123 if we do the go around. And that's the 1,000 foot to go warning. As I say, it's worked out actually perfectly. But you can see there's peaks ahead. I mean, we won't have a massive amount of clearance, so you really have to make sure those altimeters are set correctly. So in about a mile, it's going to start turning us towards the Hepeb probably. Let's just let the speed build off a bit. Just get a little bit closer until it starts to do its thing, and then I'll switch into heading mode. We have leveled off now. About 3 miles, it's going to probably start a turn. So now I'm just going to switch to heading mode. And that's going to turn us to 350. And we can just let the speed sort of bleed off quite a bit. And we'll do about a minute in this direction, and then followed by another left turn direct to DBL. And see if we can put DBL onto the FMS now. Nope. That's better. So I've set DBL up so we can head direct to DBL, and then from there Hepeb, which is the start of the procedure. So speed's now manageable, so to just a bit below 220, which is more or less exactly what I wanted. And we can go direct back to DBL at this point. So just going to use the heading mode to turn us around, and then we can do a direct to DBL thing on the FMS. It's really beautiful though. I've never been to this part of the US, but I can imagine this is a stunning place to fly into. At this point, let's go direct to DBL and switch back to nav source FMS1 and switch to nav mode. There we are. And we can just bring the power back. I really want to have it about just below 210 with first stage of flap in. Set 1290, which is 12900 rather, which is our first ascent point after Hepeb, after DBL rather. And you can see why we're just going to be getting over to this ridge. Stick out a stage of flap in at this point. I want to keep the speed up though, so I just need to apply a bit of power. I must put the gear down as well. We really need to start slowing this aircraft down. It's a huge danger of overspeeding this. So we need to be above 12.9. It's not going to be a problem. So the main problem's speed here, and then it'll be 12.2. So let's put that in now. And our missed approach point will be 10,200. I think another stage of flapping actually can help matters. You see how close we get to the ridges, and if you can see just ahead there, you can see the it's about to make out the runway. So I've got spoilers there, I've got flaps at 20, and you can see we really do need to keep the speed under control. So throttles are idle, spoilers almost fully deployed. Let's put our landing flap in as well, because our VREF is 117 and we are not seeing any reduction in speed. And that's what I'm saying, you really need to anticipate this a long time before you get anything like on short final. But it's a lovely clear day today, which is, has a bit of benefit. So just going to be bleeding that speed off. I've now got full spoiler out and speed is just more or less holding. And the, as I say, missed approach, we're approaching the missed approach point, but I'm happy with that. And you see what I mean by the offset, it's maybe 20 degrees. Let's take the autopilot off at this point. So I still have full spoiler deployed. So it's a steep approach into a high airfield, so it's we do have to give that serious consideration. Taking the spoilers out now, I think we're sustainable now, just above the VREF. So the missed approach point would be a fairly sharp right turn to Linz. I'm still going to do a very gradual turn to the left to align with the runway. Full flap is in and gear is down. Wind slightly from the left.
Minimums. 500.
Could ignore that one.
100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Uh, 50 knots. That's off. Turn the probes off. And welcome to Aspen. Let's finish tidying up here. Lights can come off, taxi light come on. Turn the strobes off as well. And the other thing to remember is the APU to start. And there's something you see a lot there, a stretch limo. It's a nice little touch. So this is just the stock airport for including X-Plane. I think there's a commercially available version of this. But it's one of the better stock airports. So very interesting approach. Let's go and park up. Imagine this being a place where you can get into a jet jam. There's certainly no shortage of rather nice aircraft here. That'll do us. Okay, so here we are at Aspen. Let's close the everything down. So first thing, parking brake on, set. Noticeable steering. So basically going down, I like to go down sort of vertically. So noticeable steering, windshield heats off, engine room switches off. Emergency lights off. Strobes can come off at this point. Passenger seat belts, taxi light can come off. And then over to the hydraulics panel. Everything off there. Gust lock on. Wish. And then the next line is APU off, although we'll keep that running for the moment because we don't always have ground power. Then standby instruments can come off, and we can switch the battery off because we're powered from the APU at the moment, and then chock supplied, and that's it. Thanks for your company today. Do join me on the final leg where we're going to be departing Aspen and we're going to be routing out to the west coast of the United States. So see you then.